Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Look us up in the sports section on Roku. We're there, Dwyer Boxing and Sports News. On iTunes, one word, Dwyer Boxing News. Same to add us on the Roku channel. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now let's talk NFL football. Right, first, let me just say, with regard to boxing, there's a spirited conversation taking place right now in the comment section to the Leo Santa Cruz versus Guillermo Rigondeaux video that I posted earlier. Right? Guillermo Rigondeaux, among sports fans, at least among the boxing hardcore here on YouTube, has a much more favorable opinion than he does with the greater public. Right? The boxing hardcore is firmly convinced that Rigondeaux is elite and that he walks through Leo Santa Cruz. Now, I beg to differ, and I'm not backing down. I would take Santa Cruz in that fight. To get the differing points of view, I hope you go back to that video. Forget my comments. Look at your comments in the comment section. A lot of good points being raised, a lot of references to past fights and things like that. Now, as people know, I believe the gap in making profits, right, where you make profits is in the gap between public perception and reality, right? In basketball, let's shift sports for a second. It's clear to me that the Cleveland Cavaliers cannot win the Eastern Conference of the National Basketball Association. They just don't have the defensive intensity. Right? You're not going to turn Kevin Love into a defensive stud simply by offering him a change of uniform. Right? Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, LeBron James, they're not going to work together as seamlessly as they're working seamlessly together right now in the Windy City, Chicago. The Bulls, from head to toe, are a better team than the Cleveland Cavaliers. Let me point out the Washington Wizards might be a better team than the Cleveland Cavaliers. LeBron's a big brand name. Good for him. He's fooling a lot of people out there in the public. Basketball is a chemistry sport. It takes a while for players to click together. Butler, for the Chicago Bulls, right now is one of the league's best players. Casual fans don't know who he is. You add in Gasol, you add in Joakim Noah, it almost doesn't matter if Derrick Rose comes to play, and he's been coming to play, right? I know it sounds foolish now in December to be fading LeBron James. That's exactly what I'm doing here. I don't believe the Cavaliers have legs. They'll beat a lot of teams in the regular season. In the postseason, I expect them to fold up. Right? They just don't work that well together. Anderson Varejao is out for the season. What I'm about to say is going to be controversial. They're going to need to pick up the kind of player that insiders know about. The kind of player that is an elite player who, for whatever reason, the public doesn't recognize. Right? Someone like an Andrew Bogut. Right? The Golden State Center, who, if you track passing ability for big men, shot blocking ability for big men, rebounding ability for big men, defensive presence, you understand that even though the fans won't recognize Bogut, he's the kind of player that helps you win championships. Somehow the Cavaliers are going to have to find a way to pick up some talented guy like that to salvage their season. And I don't believe that teams are going to allow them to do so without bleeding a liter of blood. They're going to have to give up something to get something. Unless the general manager is Houdini, I just don't see it happening. Right? Fade the Cavaliers. Let's talk football. Now, I said this in an earlier video. I'm sticking to it. I think you need to fade football's equivalent of LeBron James right now, and that's Peyton Manning. right? Understand the playoffs couldn't have broken worse for the Denver Broncos in terms of the quality of their opponents. They're going to play the winner of the Pittsburgh Steelers-Baltimore Raven game. Now let me just put this in perspective. Understand only one game in the first round has two Super Bowl winning quarterbacks facing each other. And that's this game. Steelers against the Ravens. Now let's go one step further. Understand that 2 years ago, the Ravens went into Denver and beat the Denver Broncos. Right? Think about that. Understand, that's the worst kind of opponent to go up against. Right? An opponent who already knows. They don't have to theorize. They know that they have the capability of beating you in your own house. Understand, too, Peyton Manning no longer has even average arm strength. Right? He throws the ball these days like Ryan Lindley throws the ball. Advantages pre-snap. It's in his ability to read defenses and know where the matchups are. He can't throw the ball by you. Understand, two of the strongest armed quarterbacks in the National Football League are Joe Flacco and Ben Roethlisberger. The Broncos are now guaranteed to face a team with a stronger armed quarterback than they have, and that's in their first playoff game after the bye. It's going to be tough, whoever they face. Right? This is really the worst feeder game in the National Football League for any of the teams. Let me point out, too, the Steelers might have the best wide receiver in the game, Antonio Brown. They might have the best running back in the game, Le'Veon Bell. Now, for the football hardcore, I encourage you to keep a close eye on Le'Veon Bell's MRI and what comes out of his hyperextended leg from yesterday's game, right? If he's out, that would be a huge blow to the Steelers because he's a very high-impact player, right? But understand, if he's in, right, or if he's not in the next game against the Ravens, but he's available for the week after that against the Broncos, that's going to be awful for the Broncos, right? Understand, too, if the Broncos are fortunate enough to get by the winner of the Steeler-Raven game, and I'm not sure if they do, if they're fortunate enough to get by the winner of that game, then they get to travel to Foxborough and play the Patriots, right? At a location that they've already lost this season. Broncos lost to the Patriots this year. More importantly, I encourage you to look at Peyton Manning's postseason record against the Patriots in Foxborough, understanding that the 1 year that Peyton Manning got by the Patriots, that was in Indy indoors. You're talking about a guy with a weaker arm. Let's also investigate exactly what the Broncos have done at home this season. Let me point out, I know the public sees 47 points put up against the Oakland Raiders. Understand, the Raiders have one of the worst defenses in the league. Right? Understand, Peyton Manning threw for 309 yards in the game. That wasn't a Peyton Manning fest, folks. In fact, if you look at Peyton Manning's passing yards, they've been dampened significantly. Right? Understand the 309 yards that Peyton Manning threw for against the Ravens. Against the Raiders. are the most yards Peyton Manning has thrown for in a game in more than a month. In fact, you have to go back about a month and a half. Think about it. Also, look at their home record, right? Before they played the Raiders in Week 17, understand, the prior home game, they played against the Buffalo Bills, a team that did not make the playoffs. They won that game by 7 points. The prior home game, they played the Miami Dolphins, a team that did not make the playoffs. They won that game by 3 points. Folks, Denver's not playing great football. Right? Understand the 2 home games before this Raider game. They won those 2 home games by a total of 10 points combined against 2 teams that did not make the playoffs. Right? In fact, apart from Week 5, when they played the Arizona Cardinals, and they did rip up the Cardinals pretty good at home, understand, when they played a playoff team at home, and that only happened once, they won that game against the Indianapolis Colts. It was the first week of the season by only 7 points. The Broncos are not that much better, if they're better, than elite competition. They're simply not. Right? So, you're talking about a quarterback who hasn't been great in the postseason for his career on a team that isn't a great team. Don't believe me? Just consider the fact that the Broncos lost Week 16 against the Cincinnati Bengal team that the Steelers just beat. Right? They lost. They're not playing great football against elite teams. Judge them by their performance against elite teams, not teams like the Oakland Raiders, who were recently vying for the first pick in the NFL draft. Right? We don't even know who's going to be coaching the Raiders next year. So my point is simply this. The Broncos are guaranteed in their first playoff game to play a team with a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Big Ben's won 2 Super Bowls, folks. Joe Flacco, on his way to his Super Bowl, walked over the Denver Broncos. I understand that game had a big comeback component to it. Right? Just understand Joe Flacco was throwing for all those yards against the Denver Bronco defense. In my opinion, you need to fade the Broncos. I believe the public hears the Peyton Manning brand name and is as blinded by it as any name in sports. Right? The LeBron James brand name. Right? You would have thought LeBron won the NBA title last year. Right? Peyton Manning, just like LeBron, came up short last year. But people throw that Peyton Manning name out and folks are blinded. In my opinion, the Broncos face one of the hardest roads to the Super Bowl. Right? I'm not sure if they win their home playoff game. They better hope the Patriots lose to Andrew Luck, who the Patriots beat up last year in the playoffs, or Andy Dalton, who, let's face it, doesn't have a great playoff resume. When's the last game Andy Dalton won in the playoffs? Think about it. If the Patriots beat the winner of the Indy-Cincinnati game, then they host the AFC Championship. Tom Brady's going to look across the field. He's going to see a guy he not only has already beaten this year, he's going to see a guy who he usually beats in the playoffs. Right? So all of that said, looking at the odds, the Broncos, the 2 seed in the AFC, they're overrated. Understand, this time of year, one of the weak links on the Broncos is the quarterback, Peyton Manning. What I want you to do is to actually look at the film of his win this last weekend over the Oakland Raiders. Folks, the ball is floating. The ball is floating. Now, scrub DBs, okay, they're going to be out of position. Wide receivers are going to catch balls. You think that's going to happen if he were to face the Seattle Seahawks again? You don't think a guy like Richard Sherman's going to know to wait until after Peyton releases the ball to just run to where the ball's going to be? Let me let you in on a secret on Demaryius Thomas. He's very hard to deal with after the catch. There's no question about it. Right? After he catches the ball, oh, good luck bringing him down. He's a big wide receiver, great balance, right? Can run you over. Right. Just understand, though, that he's not Brandon Marshall. You can play games with him before the catch. Right? The time to attack him is before the catch. If he doesn't catch the ball, he can't get yards after the catch. Right? Great DBs will be able to be in position to knock down balls. Right? Let's just say, I encourage you to look at the seeding. If I were you, I would fade the Denver Broncos. Let me also say, too, people know I had a great weekend last week. I believe I put a 3-game parlay up here online that hit. I'm going to post picks on my premium site, Dwyer Sports Betting. Right? Just understand, though, that there are some overrated teams out there. There's some teams out there, quite frankly, that are not healthy. Understand, too. Let me just give you one tip here on a Vegas mispricing. Right now, the Steelers are favored by 3 over the Baltimore Ravens. Just 3. Now, understand, those two teams face the same path to the Super Bowl after this game. Right? The winner is going to have to go to Denver to play Denver in Denver. Right? That's already set in stone. Understand right now, if you go to a futures window, and the lines are changing quickly, but understand that even though Vegas has the Steelers as just a field goal favorite over the Ravens, on the futures market, with the teams facing really the same road to the Super Bowl, right? Understand the Steelers are 15-1 to win the whole thing. The Ravens are something like 40-1 to win the whole thing. You're getting better than 2 times the odds on the Ravens. Understand, you can hedge plays in the playoffs. In other words, I could take a team to win the game. Then I could sprinkle something on the other side of the play. Take the other team on a futures. Why? Because if the team I pick to win the game loses the game, then I'm still in play in the next round, especially when Vegas is offering you 40-1 on the other side of the aisle. Keep in mind, 40-1 on a team that has a Super Bowl winning coach. Right? John Harbaugh beat his brother Jim in that Super Bowl. And that has a Super Bowl winning quarterback. And guys in the locker room with Super Bowl rings. T-Sizzle. Hello, Dinata. Right? So, just pay attention to futures. View futures in part as a hedge play. Right? Because let's face it, we know how life works out. You're going to win some games you should have lost. You're going to lose some games you should have won. You're going to win some games you have no idea how you won it. Right? Take a look at the futures right now on the Baltimore Ravens. Figure that out. I don't know. I'm not saying the Ravens beat the Steelers. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying, though, is when you look at the odds, some bets make themselves, right? If I'm in a casino and I'm like, wow, these two teams are evenly matched. The home team is favored by 3. That's par for the course in Vegas, right? So here, Steelers are favored by 3 over the Ravens. That's how close that Steeler-Raven game is. And then I look at the futures window and I see that the Ravens are more than twice the odds of the Steelers to win the whole thing. And I know they have to play the same games. You got to be kidding me. Anyway, I hope you visit us at Dwyer Sports Betting, my premium YouTube channel. If you followed my advice on that 3-team parlay from last week, congratulations. 3-team teaser, congratulations. And I hope you continue to touch base as the playoffs go forward. If you learn one thing, in fact, if you learn 2 things from this video, I hope they are: 1, fade the Cleveland Cavaliers in the NBA; 2, fade Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos in the NFL. I know that sounds crazy. I understand the brands that are LeBron James and Peyton Manning. Right? Let's just say there have been years, just last year in fact, where those guys did not win rings. Thanks for stopping by.